Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I, 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I am also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. The pregnancy has been very hard. I have horrible morning sickness that reached a really bad point where I passed out and hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. They were evicted, and I don't know why. One room was my office was tossed into our room, papers everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. It was like a light flipped and my husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine then. You should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. I woke up and went to get a drink of water. And I couldn't as every glass we owned is scattered around the house. They didn't clean a single thing. I passive-aggressively started to pick up the dirty dishes and wash them. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when their kids were crying nonstop, banging on the walls, so on. Their mom was in her room for hours ignoring them. When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with her kids when she was tired, then continued to complain how nothing was done in the house while he was at work all day. Yep, the same house he didn't clean. That led to a fight where I told him, I am sick to have company and they need to leave. To which he replied, they're his family, and he won't kick them out. I started to cry again. I was beyond frustrated, exhausted. I physically couldn't do it anymore. So I called my mom asking if I could come stay with her, telling her the whole story in front of my husband, who at this point was completely shocked, angry. Also, I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. My mom came with my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. My super angry mom told my husband, since your family can stay, so can we. My mom then quickly took charge. I was sent to bed while my brother started cleaning, complaining loudly at how disgusting my brother-in-law's family is, along with what a horrible husband my husband is for putting me through this while I am sick. Later, I got a text message from my mother-in-law calling me an a-hole for not helping my husband clean up the house and putting my brother-in-law in an uncomfortable position by having my mom boss him around. Now for the top comments. Wait, your mother-in-law called to fuss at you for involving your mother? There's this pot kettle thing. Not the a-hole 1000%. Put house guests in a shared home require 2 yeses and only 1 no. Both of you agree or it shouldn't happen. Your husband has treated you abominably. I'm not sure I could deal with that honestly. Can you go stay with your mom? I agree with the 2 yeses, but I wasn't even asked to say no. Which is a huge sign of disrespect and a major red flag. Does he do this a lot? Does he actively treat you like a partner? Or does he just decide things and you go along to keep the peace? This will not get better, OP, if you don't set some major boundaries. Again, that he did this while you were in the hospital suggests he knew you didn't agree and wanted to present it as a done deal you couldn't/wouldn't argue with. Go stay with mom and let him enjoy lying in the filthy bed he's made. And honestly tell him that you're not coming back until they're gone, and your house is as clean as when you left it. If you won't or can't, then you know where his priorities are. You're pregnant. The house you describe is unfit to bring a newborn into. Depending on how bad and what country you live in, Child Protective Services could step in. Is your marriage worth potentially losing custody of your baby over? Because I can tell you right now that it shouldn't be. That baby has to be your #1 priority, and living in a house full of dirty dishes and moldy food ain't it, sis. My heart hurts for you. You deserve so much better. He has always been very respectful. It was like his switch went off, and he's no longer acting like the loving person I know when he's around his brother. I know this may be hard to hear, but I don't think this is about his brother. You're now pregnant with his child and tied to him forever. This is when a lot of abusers show their true colors. It's time for you to start thinking about exit strategies. Not the a-hole. In fact, I think you were underreacting, which is understandable considering your current health. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister listen to her daughter scream? My 33 female sister Marnie, 35 female, has a 3-year-old daughter Annabelle. I love my niece very, very much, but Marnie sets down no boundaries for her. Everything Annabelle does is age-appropriate, but as a parent, it's your job to help your child become the best person they can be. When Annabelle doesn't want to do something or needs to get her way, she screams. It's very, very loud and hard to ignore. so Marnie and her husband would instantly give in. As a mom of 4, I completely understand it's hard to hear your child cry or be upset. And sometimes, yes, absolutely pick your battles, but others, the toddler can't win. Around the holidays, Marnie and I hung out a lot with the kids. At one point, we were headed to an aquarium. Marnie started going one way and Annabelle started screaming. Marnie turns around and heads in a direction that'll add 15 minutes to our route. When I asked why, she said that Annabelle likes passing a certain landmark on her way. However, Annabelle then started screaming she didn't want to see it, and halfway there we turned around. It added more time and my kids were annoyed. I let most of this go as Annabelle is not my child. It isn't my vehicle nor house where these predicaments take place. But then Marnie broke her leg while her husband was out of town and she needed help getting around and tending to Annabelle. So I agreed they should stay with us. Last night, we pick up our kids from school, stopping at Annabelle's preschool last. Once we finally get her in the car, she didn't want to leave and Marnie let her just run around for 10 minutes and wouldn't let me grab her because she's the boss of her body. I'm exhausted. I still have to get home and cook. As I'm heading in one direction, Annabelle starts screaming for me to go in the other. I calmly explain that way is longer and we don't have the time. Marnie asks me to just make it easier as she doesn't want to hear her scream. But going that way will add more time to our drive, so I say no again and kept driving, putting on some kid-friendly music while my kids are trying to distract Annabelle. Marnie starts crying, saying things like, "It's okay, baby. We'll be home soon. Oh, I know you're so sad." This isn't very nice. The thing is, Annabelle stopped screaming after 5 minutes when she realized she wasn't getting her way. Keep in mind, she never shed a tear, just screamed. Marnie later told me that I was horrible for forcing her to listen to her daughter scream. Asking wouldn't have been so hard to not add stress to her. My husband agrees that I did the right thing, but also pointed out Marnie and Annabelle are going through a stressful time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That poor kid apparently won't be learning appropriate behavior anytime soon. Yep, especially since anyone who teaches it to her will apparently be berated for making her scream. Annabelle needs to be taught good behavior immediately, and Marnie's doing a massive disservice to her child by refusing to parent her. As the saying goes, they can cry now or you can cry later. This won't get better as she gets older if Marnie keeps things this way, only worse. Not the a-hole. It's your car, and you're not being paid to chauffeur her daughter around. When she drives, she picks the path home, and you kept mom. They can afford you the same respect. But you can't change how your sister parents her child. You can only distance yourself from the spoiled brat she's raising. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think people have some complete, inalienable right to parent their kids as incompetently as they like in their own nuclear family silo. Sooner or later, we're all accountable to a community. I'm also not one of those people on this website who seemingly gets off at the thought of berating a bratty child stranger in public. That's not what I mean. But the adults closest to this kid's misguided parents have a role in enforcing their own expectations, making it clear that this kid will have to learn to cope if she wants to function in settings outside her own home. Better that than this kid's underpaid, stressed teachers trying to do it alone, with no support from any other adults, while Opie and other family keep a cold distance. Not the a-hole. Hopefully Marnie and her husband will learn to set healthy boundaries with Annabelle. Does Annabelle behave like this at preschool? Yep, there's been a lot of behavioral reports because she screams when told no, or clean up messes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing my baby to the hotel resort my brother was getting married in? My brother was getting married, and it was a child-free wedding per future sister-in-law's request. The wedding was out of state, so my husband and I were going to make it into a 3-day weekend. We had a sitter lined up months ago, but the day before we were set to leave, she had to cancel for a family emergency. We tried to find a last-minute sitter that we trusted and could also do just overnight but came up empty. I tried calling and texting my brother about the situation but couldn't get hold of him. We were both in the wedding party and I didn't want to leave my brother and his soon-to-be wife in bind, so I called my mother after that since I knew she was with them. I explained the situation and she said she'd call me back after talking to him. 4 hours passed and we didn't hear back from them, so we had to make a decision. And since we are currently sharing one vehicle, I couldn't really leave my husband and kid without a vehicle, and he had put a lot of money already into the wedding and trip, so we just took our baby with us. We got there later than we originally planned and just went to our room. The next afternoon was the wedding, and my husband and I planned to swap time out. I'd go to ceremony and part of the reception while he stayed with the baby, and he could attend the second half of the reception while I stayed with the baby. When the ceremony was over, and we were heading inside to the reception, my husband had the baby inside in her stroller. I joined my husband and went to say hello to some family members, and went with him to congratulate my brother and new sister-in-law. Husband said his hellos and congrats, then went back to our room with our child. I left the reception area a few times to bring my husband some small plates of food so he didn't have to wait for his turn to eat. And one of my trips back, my brother spoke with me about it being child-free wedding, and his wife was upset that my husband had a baby in the lobby and that I kept leaving the reception. I told him they can't be too upset because we didn't bring the baby into the wedding area or the reception. But the rest of the time I was at the reception, I kept getting comments from who I'm guessing were sister-in-law's family and her bridesmaids about how I was trying to steal her thunder by having my baby there. Sister-in-law kept asking why I didn't just leave them at home and would not accept my reason for not doing so. It's been a sore spot for my family and her all weekend. Am I an a-hole for bringing the baby with us? Info: the wedding ceremony itself was outside in a courtyard. It was not in a closed-off area. We had to go through the lobby area to get to the reception hall. My husband was in the lobby walking with the baby and getting coffee from the hotel shop. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Short of abandoning your child, what else were you supposed to do? Would have loved to hear sister-in-law's recommendation, likely requiring duct tape. Not the a-hole. Wait, you don't use duct tape on your kids? Not the a-hole. Excited to hear what magical solutions everyone had on offer. You were in the wedding party. You had a solid plan for everything. You showed up and did an amazing job under those circumstances. The magical solutions were 1. Leave my husband without a car while he was home with our baby. 2. Leave our child with a babysitter we didn't know for more than one night. 3. My husband languished in the hotel room for hours without eating before he could go downstairs to the reception, which held to the no on room service prices. And 4. Whoever was watching the baby just stay in the room. You forgot the solution where someone actually got back to you in a timely manner about you losing your sitter. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You and your husband did all you could to respect the child-free wedding, while also dealing with an unexpected sitter cancellation. You tried to reach out to someone in advance of the wedding, and did everything you could to not have the baby be the center of attention. The only piece that maybe stands out is the left the reception area a few times. But without knowing what kind of setup that was or how you left, it doesn't change my opinion. Last story. Am I the a-hole for hiding condiments for my wife and children? My wife more or less takes care of the house and kids. When I'm home, I take care of the honey-do list and do my part around the house. Before I got married, I lived with my roommates and never had any problems. We were all immature adults who respected each other's boundaries, and when we didn't, we accepted the repercussions. Now, our house has a large kitchen with lots of cupboards. Our pantry is under the basement stairs. My wife leaves just the basics in the kitchen cupboards. She says that everything we aren't going to use up that week can stay downstairs. I am the only person in my family that eats certain snacks, as neither my wife or kids like my stuff. So I ask for one shelf in the kitchen for my stuff, not one cupboard. 1 out of 3 shelves and 1 out of 11 cupboards. My wife agreed that was fair, and it has been that way since we bought the house. I get to keep soap, candy, and salty licorice where I can always find them, along with my personal balsamic vinegar and few other things. My cupboard isn't stuffed, but it's not particularly organized either. But I know it's there, so I can reach in and grab what I want. For the last few months, my family has decided that since my shelf isn't full, they can stuff whatever they want in there. For the most part, it consists a bunch of giant condiment packs from Costco. Stuff that belongs in the pantry. I've asked them not to do this, and I take the stuff down to the pantry. I am getting kind of sick of this. I started just pulling them out and leaving them on the counter, and they ended up back on my shelf. So now I hide them around the house. When they come looking for the salt, pepper, granulated garlic, garlic toast mix, or steak spice, I give them clues. Boy, I sure would be salty if I found that in the basement bathroom under the sink. Then they have to go dig it out from behind everything there. My wife says that she understands and that I can stop doing this. I agree, so I promised I would only do this stuff that wasn't mine that was on my single shelf. She said I was being an a-hole. I agree, but I don't think I'm alone in this. On the plus side, I don't have to hide half a gallon of vinegar in the garage now. Seems like I'm in the minority so far, but I think not the a-hole. Without much cupboard space and separate pantry, it would be very easy for them to just leave you your one shelf regardless of whether or not it is empty. It's not empty, it has my stuff on it. I don't know, man. Reading the absolute vitriol in the replies has me cracking up. I don't think it's that serious. She gave you spot for your stuff and is no longer respecting that space. Are you being a bit of a dum-dum with hiding stuff? Sure, but it's harmless. Going against the grain on this one to say not the a-hole. Or just move your food forward on the shelf so it looks full. But yeah, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Man wants one shelf to himself. He's fulfilled the usual AITA demand to communicate and it failed. Instead of the YTAers getting pissy with him, how about his family grant him one simple request? Agreed. OP is so petty. Darn right.